everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in the first 2 episodes of The Skeleton Crew. So if you haven't watched those episodes yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disneyplus, check out those episodes, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from the first 2 episodes of The Skeleton Crew, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Star Wars!
Star Wars!
It's back. It's back. We're back.
Baby. We're back, baby!
Yes, we're here. Let's do it.
I half expected you to come in with the hello there.
Oh, shit. I don't know what button it's on. I want to hit the wrong thing.
We were open. Yes. There we go! Nailed it.
We're good.
Nailed it.
First try.
First try. We're up to a great start, and getting right into it. Not only did we get space pirates, which already was incredible, but we got space werewolf, which was just that much better.
Yeah,
I fucking loved it. That was literally my reaction when I first started watching the first episode. I was like, "Oh my god, space pirates! Oh my god, space werewolf!" Like I was just like freaking out. But that whole intro scene was so much fun because it almost felt like a Guardians of the Galaxy beginning to something, because when they kick that vault open and there's nothing in there, it's like perfect comedic like sarcastic, robbing a place type of thing. Like it was just one of those well, shit. Like, you know what I mean? I was just like, this is perfect. This is exactly the tone I'm looking for right now. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for, I guess, the first episode of The Skeleton Crew?
Yeah, I thought this was a really I thought it was a really good solid start to the show, especially for anyone who's probably hesitant about a child-led show to begin with. I think right away, they set the tone immediately for what the show was probably going to be going forward. It's going to be for everybody. And yeah, I think they just especially if you're a fan of movie like The Goonies too. I think it nailed that vibe for sure. It's just from the prosthetic nature of all the sets, even just kind of the goofy comedy / horror elements that even The Goonies, because we're following a bunch of fun kids here, in settings I've never been in. But yeah, the opening scene itself, let me know right away what I was in for, because it was a straight up homage to the opening scene of A New Hope. From everything from the pirates latching onto the ship, out of the Empire doing it to the rebels, to them taking their stances for them to fire upon them when they do break through the wall. And even then when the main guys, or when the werewolf is interrogating the guy, and he goes, this is the kind of like in the A New Hope, where he's like, this is a consular ship, we're on a diplomatic mission. The guy kind of does his own version of that. It's pretty much line for line. They kind of recreate their own version of it, and it was so amazing. And yeah, even the whole Guardians of the Galaxy comparison is pretty cool, because it's the whole character that kind of feels like they set everybody up. Kind of gives this whole good bullshitter vibe to him, and he's kind of got weasel his way out of there. Yeah, so that's really kind of cool. The whole scoundrel thing, very Han-esque as well. So yeah, I think that was a really cool way to kind of set the tone of what we were going to be watching in the future. And then we were just off to the races with the main story after that too. So yeah, I'm very intrigued by what they set up early on.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that leads perfect into my first big takeaway. The takeaways for the first episode. You want to get into some big takeaways? Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick off big takeaways just because exactly exactly what you were saying. It gives a Goonies vibe. I was thinking more along the lines of the first season of Stranger Things, because they're about the same age as the crew that we have, in this series and the first season of Stranger Things. And it's kind of like building up that, group of kids,
a ragtag group of kids
yeah,
on an adventure.
yeah, that are, like just thrown into this crazy journey, crazy situation type of thing. Like, and so that's kind of the vibe I was getting, and I enjoyed it. I mean, just as much as I enjoyed the first thing, the first season of Stranger Things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm excited to kind of see this adventure unfold, just like you said, Goonies, the first season of Stranger Things, stuff like that, and seeing it from, the perspective of this group of kids type of thing. We're not getting like these grizzled old veterans of, the past Star Wars movies and shows and stuff like that. Now we're getting kind of like this more like innocent group of kids kind of thing that they don't know what they don't even know yet, type of thing. Right. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool to kind of see a fresh like take on all of the events that are going to happen, and exploring the galaxy type of thing is going to be kind of interesting. But Rico, what were some of your big takeaways for episode 1?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the core of what Star Wars was to begin with Luke going on an adventure to places that he had never been to before, in the same way. And I think that's part of the one thing I love about the character of Wim. To me, he if we're talking about comparisons to A New Hope that I saw from the opening scene, he's basically the Luke of this story, where like we're following his life on this kind of a very interesting planet, a suburban planet in the Star Wars world, which is very interesting because like it makes you just feel like you're watching a normal like television show, not necessarily set in the Star Wars world, because everything feels so normalized, like a normal Earth city, basically. And he's just a little kid that goes to school, and he's got his friends that he hangs out with and does his whole thing. He's got the neighborhood that he all of his neighbors that he knows. So yeah, it feels very like familiar too, which is it makes for a great story. But it also reminds me a little bit of even this show I think is now actually set before The Last Jedi. But his fascination with the Jedi stories that he see when he like all kids these days, they got their tablet that they run around with that he can read his stories and stuff like that, and a lot of them are seem to be Jedi adventurer based, especially for a life that he seems that he can't live. And it gives me major Broom Kid vibes from The Last Jedi, the very last scene of The Last Jedi, when they're all they have are the stories of people like Luke to kind of go off of by the word of mouth, and the way he kind of looks up to the stars when he force pulls the broom and stuff like that. I feel like we're just kind of getting to see almost like the same kind of story of a Broom Kid type of kid, but with Wim, who's just kind of stuck on the suburban planet. Which I think is very really kind of cool how they're able to kind of do these kind of mirroring jobs within any era of Star Wars, not even just like the classic era, but even the new stuff that just came out as well. So yeah, I'm very excited to see like the other connections that we start to see as the series progresses.
Yeah, it's really cool that they can do that and then also still make it more of an original thing. Like mirroring, not copying is that fine line that you have to walk is not copying, but having, just like you said, paying homage to past stuff, past creations in the Star Wars universe and everything like that. It's really interesting and it's really cool. And if they do it right, awesome. And it just makes it makes this particular series and part like in the universe of Star Wars even better. Like if they can still draw that connection but still make it an original feel is really cool. So just like we do with kind of all of our recaps when we have like either a 2-episode finale or 2-episode start to a series, no predictions for first episode because we went right into the second episode. So we're gonna kick off instant reactions for episode 2, do our takeaways for episode 2, and then do predictions for moving forward with the series and stuff like that. So kicking it right off again, episode 2 picks up immediately where we leave off in episode. Yeah. Look, we didn't even need like an episode break at that point because I mean it's literally just the scene cut. They're jumping into hyperspace, and I love the fact that Wim and everyone else is just screaming. It's just perfect because a normal person who is not experienced with jumping to light speed, that's going to be the reaction, especially when you're on a ship that you're not in control of.
Oh yeah, they experienced so many firsts within a matter of minutes that I was
Right.
just like, they're processing so much
And
at this
not
point.
only that, like Wim is super cool about it. Like he just like you said, I think it's a perfect comparison with like him to Luke Skywalker. Like he is all about adventure and he's all about like, no guys, let's keep going type of thing. But like you've been taught that you can't leave the planet. Like that is like against the law. So like everyone, like rightfully so, everyone is freaked the fuck out.
Oh yeah, Neil especially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's the goody two shoes of the group. Yeah, which I thought it's the classic group of kids where they have like, the leader who's like egging them all on. You have the kid who plays it too cool. You have the super smart techie kid.
Yep.
And then you got like the goody two shoes who's like, oh, I'm here for the ride, but I also don't know if we should be doing this. And it just makes for a great friend dynamic. And yeah, it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, but what were some of your instant reactions for episode 2?
Yeah, kind of the same, along the same lines. One of the things I enjoyed just about this overall premiere itself is one, I think Disney's kind of nailed this formula of like doing these 1 to 2 episode premiere, because they know that they're going to make these stories kind of, flow well enough to where we can build it up from there. And yeah, because they do it with their Marvel shows as well, but they do it really well with the Star Wars shows. I feel like, because a lot of times it feels like the first episode is really just kind of setting up the world, and then the second episode is where the story, like the main story, is really gets dove into, and they can really kick off from there. But yeah, again, these 2 episodes as a whole, one of the things I really did love is that we actually followed the kids for the majority of the 2 episodes. Right up until we don't meet Jude Law's character, who's he's been heavily hyped up in the trailers coming up to the series. So after a certain while, you're wondering like, when are they going to meet this guy? Because it seems like he's supposed to be like our lead. But no, it seems like this is definitely like about this group of kids, and he's just kind of like the guy that's going to tag along with them. And so I like that they kind of made them the focus of it, so that we knew that as an audience, like this is their story. It's not Jude Law's story. He's just taking part in their story. So. He's just kind of like the name that's bringing, the eyes, the attention to the casual audience. So I like that a lot. And I assume that, of course, that he's got to be our masked pirate from the episode 1, just because of how everything tied up. Like, why would they show us that opening scene if there wasn't going to be some kind of payoff for it near the end? And so now the whole the intriguing part of that, of course, is just like filling in the gaps of what happened to him from there. But yeah, I was just really impressed with the fact that. I guess credit to John Watts too, because who directed the Spider-Man movies, of course. He did a great job just kind of making the first episode, especially about the home life of the kids and stuff, so that we were like, okay, I'm invested in these guys now and what their story is.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. You want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Why don't you kick off big takeaways for episode 2?
Okay. So one of the things I really love, especially, is the friendship of Wim and Neil, because they're just their overall dynamic is just really fun, because they definitely bring the best out of each other. But a lot of the times when Neil is the one that's gonna be like, oh, you got to do the right thing and stuff like that. I just like the way that he's the reason that Wim sometimes wants to rebel as well. But Neil's always there to tag along too, which just makes them like a ride or die homie. So I just love that. But as much as I love their relationship, and I'm excited to see just more of like them in future episodes, I also just love the effects on Neil, like how he's very practical looking, but then when he brings his face up, you can see the CGI of him actually speaking in his mouth to make him look more realistic. And I think that they did a great job with that. And it's like the baby version of the Max Rebo.
I was just about to ask you if it was.
It's a baby version of Max Rebo. And I'm all for like the young versions of like all these like older scruffy looking characters. Like I've always wanted to see Baby Jabba. Yeah, I want to see them just like the cute baby versions of all these things. After Baby Yoda, I'm like, I want to see them all. So yeah, the fact that we got a little baby Max Rebo kind of character who just looks like a little tiny baby elephant, it's just adorable. And then of course his little siblings too. I want to see more of them. But yeah, as much as I love them, Nick Frost as the voice of SM33, I think is going to be a big standout of this series for sure. And I think it's also hilarious that it's SM33 is also spells out Smee, which we're dealing with a Star Wars pirate show. Smee is also like the second hand to Captain Hook in Peter Pan. Obviously, Jude Law played Captain Hook in the live action Peter Pan as well. So that's some really fun tie-ins there if you look deep enough. But yeah, the fact that he's kind of like the what seems like the first mate of the ship that they're on, and he's there to protect his captain. He's very much Shmi. From I always think of Captain Hook or Hook, the movie Hook, that version of Shmi, by Bob Hoskins. So yeah, I love that very much. As soon as I saw that, I was like SM33 Shmi. I'm like, that's just great. That's so good. But yeah, the whole thing with Fern and him and the way that she's able to get him to go under his control. And there's some really funny character dialogue moments. The whole claimsies and unclaimsies thing was really funny. She's like, you call it claimsies, man. You got to give it to her. He's like, dang it. Like they just follow by just rules that they have established on their planet. It's great. But yeah, I want to see more of Shmi. I imagine him and Jude Law's character are going to be having a thing, Hook and Shmi back together again. So, yeah, I very much enjoy that, and he kicked some serious ass too in this episode as well.
Yeah.
The combat looked really awesome. So yeah, he's already going to be up there as far as like I think some people's favorite droids. Like they do a great job of introducing some pretty cool badass droids. So they keep knocking it out of the park there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, and I totally did not catch that name either.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you
That's
brought
why
it up.
the captions, because I can at least read it out. I'm like, oh, look at that! Look at it spells out. Yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah, that makes it so.
It helps
much
me.
better.
Yeah, it helps me like know what planet names are and all that. Yeah, it's a big help for me, especially with Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, very cool. And now I'm going to be on the hunt for little things like that. Now that we know that they're just tons of little Easter eggs throughout. But getting back to kind of some of the interesting stuff that's kind of been happening, and we got so much in the first two episodes. Like you said, kind of building the backstory on all of the characters from the group of kids, also showing us a little bit of backstory of what happened to Jude Law's character, and just a lot of interesting stuff. We got hit with a lot of like information in general. But one thing that I really liked that they did is they kind of gave us these little breadcrumbs about a mystery kind of surrounding the kids' homeworld. That is just like under there. It happened twice, and it was just kind of weird, and like how everyone thinks their planet is fake, like them saying
it doesn't exist.
It's a mystery, like or it's a myth.
To the point where they think they're being messed with. Like they're like, yeah, don't mess with me. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting, and I think that's going to play into a bigger overarch kind of mystery that they're going to uncover and stuff like that. But it's really that, and even when we go back to episode 1 and they're talking about that placement test that they had to take that Wim was late
the
for.
Assessment test.
Yeah, the assessment test. Like working for like the great work or the great whatever. Like I'm wondering, like there's something going on that's not exactly on the level, and I'm really interested to find out more about that. And this kind of just piqued my curiosity even more was when people were thinking that the name of their home planet, what was it, Aden?
Yeah, they said at Aden. Yeah, which is like instead of saying like I live in Aden, I live at Aden, and it's like just the Aden. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah. But so like the fact that like this is like a myth, like a like type of thing, just piqued my curiosity about what the whole like the great work, the assessment tests and all that kind of stuff is playing into. I just think there's an overarching like mystery that I'm very interested in figuring out like now. Like it's piqued my curiosity, and now I'm just going to be paying attention to that. Like,
yeah, it's either a place that they think is made up, or a place they know about, which they know is not a good place, I would imagine, or it's a place that people thought was like they used to like not exist, but it still does, maybe, or something like that.
Well, they said it's like a place of great treasure, or like you know what I mean.
So it's almost like somewhere they didn't think it, like almost it was exactly almost mythical, almost like a Neverland or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm very
Lost
curious.
Boys.
Yeah, I am so curious to see like what this is going to be a mystery of, how they're going to figure out how to like the coordinates of this place. Like, because like also like I said before they even took off in the ship, everywhere said you're not allowed to leave the planet. Basically, there's no starships that are there's no starships that can go through the barrier, like come in or go out type of thing. So. And there's so many droids there. Like, there's not even like
AP
people.
Droids,
There's not even people teaching anybody. Like teaching the kids. There's no real people teaching the kid. I'm very curious at what's happening. Like there's such a mystery, and I'm so interested to find out more about that. Like that's just what it piqued my curiosity in the perfect way possible. Do you want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to give up predictions really quick, which just like you were saying, we got introduced to Jude Law's character at the very end of episode 2. And
very ominously.
Yeah, exactly. Very ominously. And I think that I already kind of, because of the very, very first scene that, we're putting two and two together. We're assuming he was, the captain in the very first
the masked dude.
Yeah. And he got thrown in the brig and got locked away because, the mutiny and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely a con man or an opportunist, right? Like, he is not a Jedi. He just heard the kids talking about how, like, a Jedi temple and mentioned stuff, and then somehow rigged it so it seemed like the key was floating to him. It's gotta be. I feel like I have.
You think he's Kumail in the Obi-Wan series? That whole thing where he's doing that whole deal?
Yes, I do. 100%. I think he's an opportunist. I think he's a con man. I think he's a scout, like a scout, like that type. I think he heard them saying it and he was like, "Oh, watch this! Like, I'm gonna trick them." Like, I don't think he's got force. Like, I could be proven wrong. He could, have force powers that he was able to develop and stuff like that. But if he did, how would he have let the other pirates do a mutiny over him, like, type of thing? I think he would just force pushed everybody back, and then it would just been like, okay, we got to listen to this guy because he's can wield the force. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if we're putting two and two together, it's like, and
he's appealing to Whim's like kind of fantasy about the whole adventure too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can totally see that. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, there's something about him that does feel off.
Right.
Like compared to what we've like seen hyped about him in news and trailers and stuff like that. Right. I would kind of like them to at least be force sensitive, but I could definitely, as soon as I thought about that whole thing, I'm like, well, they did the whole Kumail thing where they kind of faked us out there too. So I could definitely see a scenario that happens. And he's just known for also playing kind of untrustworthy characters too. Like, you can go back to either Captain Marvel's another one too, where like we're under the impression that he's kind of looking out for Captain Marvel, but then he ends up being the villain as well. So yeah, he's really good at kind of making you think that he's on your side when he's really not. Right. Which makes him kind of a good scoundrel for the Star Wars world too. So there's a lot to uncover there for sure. Yeah.
But what do you got as far as predictions moving into episode 3? Could be or the rest of the series in general. Like what do you got?
Yeah, one of the things I'm really interested, especially since we were talking about the ad and stuff and all that, the home planet and everything that's been going on there, is learning more about the parents too, because now I'm wondering what their whole scenario is about that, especially where it happens with Whim's dad and goes, "Come with us," because he seems like they're gonna help him in some way. So who knows? Maybe he was raised there as a kid and they're just all kind of like this under this kind of like this.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like a Stockholm syndrome type of a thing. But we also have Fern's mom too, who's kind of like at the school. She's played by Carrie Condon, who's a great actress too. I just saw her in the Banshees of Inisherin with Colin Farrell and stuff like that. And she's fantastic in it. So I was like, when I saw her pop up, I was like, oh dang, they got her. So like, what's her role going to be in this? And she's got like a nice American accent and stuff like that. So like now like all the kids are off the planet. So I'm like wondering like how the parents' storyline is going to, that's our thread that to the home planet, I think, is keeping us there. Is like that when we go back there, that's gonna be like how are we gonna get our kids back. Almost reminds me a little bit like the kids of School of Rock when they all go to the school.
Oh yeah,
like how are we gonna get our kids back? Yeah, it's like I just been informed that all your kids are missing. It's like, I just feel like that's gonna be like the thing that's gonna happen to them. But we get a cameo from a Nikto pirate named Vane. In this, who, if you guys remember him, he is from The Mandalorian. He's kind of the guy that comes up to Carl Weathers' character and kind of tries to strong arm him. And he's part of like a bigger pirates crew. I think something ends up happening to that pirate. I think this guy ends up going on his own way, but it seems like he's got some ties maybe to what we think is Jude Law's character, who's in that mask. So I imagine that's going to be our threat, and we've already seen him interact with the kids too now because Smee, I'm going to call him Smee. SM33 is a lot. Smee, kind of save their asses there too. I'm pretty sure he survived that. I hope he survived that. But I wonder if he will have more of a role later on, because that was just like our thread, our tie into the to almost let us know this is like tied into the Mandalorian timeline. Just in case people are like, when is this set? Because I feel like a lot of times they'll be like, what is that? So they see it like that. He's not exactly the most known character because he's still pretty recent. But if we're dealing with like space pirates, we can at least put together, this could be like Mandalorian timeline and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that he's a pretty interesting character. I want to see pop up again too, because he's just a lot of fun at the same time.
I know I've said this in the past, but it's so interesting that we can, new series can carve out little spaces in between like big events, like big movies and stuff like that. And we can branch off from that, but we can still connect little threads to everything else. It's so interesting, like seeing where this is in placement of stuff. Like obviously we know it's before The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But we don't know exactly where it is with the Mandalorian and stuff like that. But it's interesting to be able to kind of see that there are, like you said, there is a thread that kind of attaches to, the events of that because of this character and other places.
Part of that verse.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's just really cool, and it's really interesting, and it's something else to kind of look for and think about as the series goes on, to see if there are any other threads like connecting to other stuff that's already established, to kind of figure out, where this exactly is. I just think it's so cool, and that's why, like I've said it in the past, that I really like how they can kind of carve out a little space in between other big things.
Yeah, and then and then when like where it sets in that world, it makes you like, who else can pop up into this too? Right. Like I imagine I would say the Resistance pilot, Carson Teva, who we've been seeing in all the shows. I imagine he's gonna be kind of like our Coulson that is gonna keep popping up somehow too. So like, and now that we have the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming up too, it just actually wrapped filming. Like, how are they gonna start setting that stuff up too? Like it's all got to come together too. So, but yeah, I've always loved that about Star Wars, is that the main movies have always had a considerable gap between time. And so it's like, it leaves you wonder like, well, what did happen in that like 20 or 30 years in between all that? And there's so many different ways that you can approach it, whether it's through the criminal underworld, through the pirates, through the actual like political side of it, or just like the common people. So yeah, it's fun that they're able to play in that sandbox for as long as they have.
Yeah, and because of the sheer enormity of the sandbox, like we're not just talking about like Earth. We're literally talking about an entire like universe,
galaxy.
Yeah. It's so interesting because we could take a snapshot of one planet to one other planet, and that could be a whole series, like in the same timeline as another series that's going on with completely different planets and completely different. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just. They have so much room to play with, and they have so much geography to play with, that you could have so many series in the same time period and just have one little thread that hints at where they are, and still have the same kind of like really cool, placement in this entire Star Wars universe that we have.
Exactly. That's that's what I love about it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's just getting bigger with every series and with every, piece of, comics, like video games, any lore.
Animation,
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so cool. But anyway, as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of the first 2 episodes of The Skeleton Crew? And, who do you think Jude Law's character is going to turn out to be? Is he going to be an opportunist? Is he going to be a con man? Or is he going to be force sensitive and somehow actually, in line with the Jedi, like type of thing? Like, there are no wrong answers yet. We really don't know what's going to happen. And it's really interesting. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.